My name's Tony Little and I work for Organic Centre Wales. Now, a big part of our work is promoting organic food and organic farming and trying to keep the supply chains as short and as low carbon as we possibly can. Now, community supported agriculture has a really important contribution to make in this regard. Now, we've called together projects from right across the UK, here in Coed Hills in Glamorgan. It's an absolutely perishing February morning. But the idea is that we can bring everybody together so they can help and support each other. Now, this film is a short summary of that meeting, but before we go into that, let's just talk a little bit about what community supported agriculture actually is.
So I'm Jade Bashford and we've been talking today about community supported agriculture, which is CSA, and it's a way of bringing consumers and farmers closer together so that both of them get more out of the transaction than the producer just producing food and the consumer just eating it. So the consumer gets some of the benefits that come from a farm, so being able to access the farmland, to understand how food is grown, to get fresh food and they know where it's come from, and the farmer is able to get some of the benefits that they have from being close to the consumer. So they get some commitment from the consumers, sometimes they get labour, sometimes they're able to get a loan, sometimes they're able to commit to having a share in the harvest and taking some of the risk out of the season. The Soil Association's CSA website has got very comprehensive information about CSA and some great videos of farms and communities who have tried it as well.
I'm Rupert Dunn and I work for the Federation of City Farms and Community Gardens, and we're part of a partnership of organisations that have organised today, including Organic Centre Wales and the Soil Association, and it's really a gathering of community supported agriculture schemes from around Wales and England. There's around 200 community supported agriculture schemes in Wales, in the UK at the moment, and we want to talk about the future of that movement and how that can be supported through a network. So today is really allowing people involved in CSAs on the grassroots to input into what they feel would be needed in terms of a network to sustain the future growth of CSAs and to raise awareness levels of the public to the potential of CSAs as a trustworthy way to source your produce in the wake of scandals like the horse meat scandal. So we're posting the information on the Soil Association website. We also have a Facebook page which we will be keeping people updated on, and a Google group where you can actually join the discussion around what you think should be needed for the UK CSA movement.
At the beginning there is some local organizations which are called AMAP, but these are a group of consumers.
Jérôme Dehont from France has joined us on the Skype to share some of his experience in France. Now, the CSA network in France is an order of magnitude bigger and stronger and has been going a lot longer than the UK movement has. And really we want to learn from him how the network's developed in France and how we can implement those lessons in the UK. Now, the CSA movement is organised in France by an organisation called AMAP, which in English translates into the Association for the Maintenance of Peasant Agriculture. And they work through individual agreements, contracts if you like, between producers and individual consumers. There are about 1,600 of these AMAPs in France, and they're organised into regions, and each AMAP belongs to its own regional network. The regional network then sends a representative to a national organisation, of which Jérôme is a member, and that national organisation does a lot of advocacy and campaigning work at national level. In terms of what the network actually does, advocacy is a big part of what they do, and that's reflected in the enormous support that AMAPs have from local government in particular, and indeed at national level. They also help projects share resources. That could be machinery, that could be knowledge, that could be labour, and it could be produce. And that's a very important role, particularly of the regional AMAPs. They also have something quite unique, which are so-called incubator AMAPs, and their job is to basically bring new projects into existence. So they help the producers in terms of to get set up, and to find new members and really expand the network that way. So, what you have ultimately through AMAP is you have a strong organisation with a consistent message, with strong support from government, and those are probably the key ingredients of success in France.
Hearing other success stories which can inspire not only us with new energy for our projects, but also newer groups to set up and to help the movement gather pace and increase visibility. And as we've established that it is already a movement of a sort, that's very encouraging in itself, sitting here now 3 years on from setting up my own project. So we looked at what the obstacles might be to setting up a CSA, or the success of one, and membership retention being at the top of that. So a network that could help with the marketing side of membership would be really, really beneficial. And then we realised that ultimately, if a network is going to be successful, it has to be run somewhere by someone. And we generally, as a consensus, thought that should be separate from Soil Association. A CSA has a different remit and in a way should act to maybe put pressure on other organisations such as Soil Association to represent our needs, or see non-organic community projects as part of a wider movement that isn't necessarily just looking at organic farming and growing. And in order to change the relationship between consumers and producers, the network would have to be promoting CSA and have a very clear remit for that if it was an umbrella organisation. So how would we set what that remit is? Who would be instigating it? Whether they would be paid through funding or through a subscription membership. We didn't agree on a legal status or organisational scheme, but what we did think was that, like the Organic Growers Alliance is set up on subscription fees, and part of it is unpaid work, so you need individuals to carry that. But that membership model could be, with more organisations, something that financially could pay for an administrator to keep all the information live, so that all the work that's already gone on to set up a CSA network through the Soil Association and through ourselves can be carried on.
The CSA UK network, do we now need to formalise that? It doesn't have to be incorporated, it could be unincorporated, but then we'd have like a governing deed, an association that we could all sign up to. And we look at it that actually the core group, or the network that meets, like they said about having a board and all the website, we develop that for information, but perhaps some other functionality like representation. And again, that could be, we keep it relatively informal because we sign up to, or again, we take that down a more formal route of becoming a community interest company. And I think that was then the third option we put here, a federation, which would be incorporated, which would be a standalone structure, but then that might be much more appropriate for the vehicle that we need, where we want to go as a movement, but it's more resource heavy, because then it's got its own structure that needs to be serviced in terms of having, committee which can then meet, and then it's separate to our different organisations. So we do need to think about that more seriously. We feel that would be the route.
We think we've had a pretty successful meeting. We've certainly agreed that a network is needed, and it's a good thing. We've got some broad agreement about what the network should do, and we've got some consensus as to how it should be structured. Now the challenge now is to get this network up and running. In the short term, that'll be run by organisations such as ourselves and the Fed and the Soil Association, but really the challenge for the groups themselves is to set up a self-sustaining independent network, and that would probably need to be achieved over the next 6 months or so. Now, if you're interested in any of the issues raised in this film, if you're looking at starting up a new community-supported agriculture project, please get in touch with me. My name is Tony Little. My email address is jll@aba.ac.uk, and you can visit our website, which is www.organiccentrewales.org.uk.